All right, welcome back to the Death by Tyranny podcast. I don't think the last podcast people had a lot of stomach for, and that's not actually too surprising because for as much as people like to bitch about politicians, Democrats, Republicans, whatever it may be, realistically, we just are not at the point as civilians in the United States ready to take on the responsibility that we are in charge of our own destiny. But when we say that, you have to discard the process completely. You have to come up with a new process because our process is broken. We have to, on a mass scale, as civilians, gather and tell the United States government what they're doing, we are not happy with, and we do not trust the election process. And it's not enough to just say it, but we have to, in some way, physically show it to let them know that it is at a level that we would and are capable of stopping it by force and are willing to do so. And I just don't think a lot of people are ready for that. They would rather keep in their minds that as long as their pantries are full, their ammo cans are full, they do what they can to get some type of tactical training and on some level are mindful of the threats going on in the United States, that is good enough. That on an individual level, as long as they are prepared, they can somehow sidestep what is coming and what is happening. So if I was to try to explain it any more without upsetting people too much and trying to lay it out in layman's form, it would be this. Let's assume that I have a rather large basement, and in that basement is nothing short of stacked to the ceiling emergency foods and preparedness items. I have gun safes from one end of my house to the other end of my house, completely full with the highest level of military artillery. And if I was sitting here, because let's be honest, if the FBI or anyone like that was to target me and I was to be doing something like this, or hell, even if I was off grid, they have the capability and have been known to use the tactics of reconnaissance or surveillance, and they would wait to the point where I least expected it. So if we're talking about just me personally, myself, with all of this preparedness gear and artillery, I would probably be doing this show. Let's just hypothetically say that I am trained to the level of pretty high standards when it comes to military operators. If they were to come to my door right now, could I put up a fight? Absolutely. Would I potentially cause them casualties on their side? Maybe. But at the end of the day, they would get what they wanted. My life would be terminated, and whatever they were trying to seize from my property, they would do so. This is to say that on an individual level, there is no hope, no matter what your capabilities are or you have access to defeat a tyrannical government. And the more research I do into election fraud and the how your average American citizen feels about election integrity, it's not just Republicans and conservatives that have a very high percentage that do not trust the process. In fact, before Trump, they were even questioning Bush's election. They questioned Obama's election. Hillary and Hillary supporters and the DNC were very suspicious and did not trust the process when it came to Trump's election in 2016. So it seems to be that if your guy wins, you're okay with the process. If your guy does not win, you're not okay with the process. But I'd be willing to bet on some level in any election, there is some kind of tampering, whether it be via propaganda or censorship or actual physical tampering with votes or voting machines. So there's your two mindsets in the United States. You have the people who think they're prepared enough to take on the federal government or an economical collapse, or you have the people who think we can vote our way out of this. And as long as we promote our candidates more efficiently than the other guy's candidate, that we will be able to turn this ship around. And let's not forget that even if you have hope to the point where you think Trump being reelected in 2024 will buy us some time, or maybe actually do something to prevent what has already been set in motion. The DNC, along with a pretty large handful of Republicans, are doing everything they can to even prevent Trump from running for president. And it's not just that Trump has done all of these things to earn the investigations and in all of the roadblocks that is set in front of him, because the DNC's equivalent of Trump, if they even have one, no matter if you consider it Hillary or Obama, has done much worse in the political arena that is politics in Washington, D.C. Yet they don't find themselves in the same position that Trump does on a weekly basis. The Mar-a-Lago raid, which I'm pretty sure, and this is going for most things that's, right now in our country, it's as if the conspiracy theorists have become mind readers and can look into the future. We tried to tell you that Trump wasn't going to be impeached for this and that there was no Russian, communication, or not communication, but some type of Russian scandal to get Trump into office. And it turns out it was indeed the exact opposite, that the DNC had paid to have Trump set up and then spied on, which a lot of Democrats to this day doesn't believe it's true, even though it is factual and can be backed up by factual evidence in court hearings. It's literally called the Steele dossier. Look it up, you fucking crazy liberal motherfucker. But yet, not a whole lot of people are being investigated for trying to set up Trump and spying on a political candidate, which is a new precedent. Same with the Mar-a-Lago raid. They are literally pushing the envelope into what could be considered a dictatorish wave in the United States to try to stop this guy for running as president. So the Mar-a-Lago raid, right? It was because he had nuclear codes. Turns out he didn't have nuclear codes. Then it was he didn't have things that he had a security clearance for. A lot of people don't know this, but the president of the United States is pretty much the top security clearance you can literally fucking get. You can pretty much declassify anything that you want. So there's a good chance anything that Trump had in his possession, he had either been privy to or had the ability to declassify. Now it comes out that it wasn't nuclear codes. It was actually some type of nuclear information, a nuclear design by another country. And from what I can find out, it has something to do with the Iran deal, which just and more than likely, and I'm just a conspiracy theory, according to the media, but just like most things, I would be willing to bet that the Iran deal and all the money that Obama gave Iran to not make nuclear weapons will somehow lead back to some corruption to the DNC, to Obama, to Hillary, somebody. And this is why they're after this information so badly. To the point where I don't even know if it's to stop Trump for running for president in 2024 or if it's just them trying to make these documents not admissible to court because Trump has something that would tie them to corruption to Iran. And if you've been paying attention to enough pieces of the puzzle, you will come to find out that Obama, Biden, and everybody here and there and in between have a lot of corrupt ties to Iran. I've listened to a lot of podcasts with a lot of people that were privy to information, high security clearances, that months and months ago said it would blow you away to know the amount of influence that Iran had on the Obama administration and the Biden administration, which is crazy to think because here we are finding out that Russia can barely handle Ukraine, and somehow, even if Trump had ties to corruption with Russia, it would be less of a threat than if Iran, Iraq, former presidents of the United States were conspiring to devastately impact the election cycles and the election process when it came to the RNC's ability to run and be elected. But yet they consistently will not stop. And all this to say is this idea that electing the right people, that everybody's vote counts, is laughable. Now, don't get me wrong, I would do my best to support any candidate that I felt worthwhile, but that doesn't mean that I have complete faith in that system. And the more and more that I get into it, and the more I find out, and the more that I educate myself, I'm beginning to lose faith, not only in the election process and our government as a whole, but even all of the contingencies that is offered from our own side. And that's kind of what the last podcast was about. Yes, you can go take classes to show you how to survive in the woods, but if we're at that point in the United States where you have to survive in the woods that are high speed, very complicated lifestyles have been devastated to the point where we are literally hiding in caves in Idaho and Montana, that we would be able to swing things into our favor to the point where we would recapture control of the United States and be able to save something resembling what we consider to be America. I don't think that's true. I think if we already get to the point where we are at such a travesty, such a hiccup in our system, that we would need to use all of these tactics that we train for on an individual level and preparedness mindset and homesteading, if we're at that point that we have no choice but to do those things, that we are forced into hardships from that path, that it is too late. I think that it's almost to the point where it's too late now. And anything that derives away from that idea that homesteading and the preparedness community is the path that we need to walk to save ourselves from a tyrannical government, anything that slightly steps out of line from that ideology is a war cry. It is too dramatic, is too violent, that we couldn't even begin to comprehend that there might be another way, not only that would work, but that has to happen to continue being a fucking country. Our forefathers did not say, in case of tyrannical government, homestead. That's not what they said. They did not say, hey, in case of a tyrannical government, be prepared to defend yourself on an individual level. That's why they used language like militias. They knew that we would have to call on our fellow citizen and brethren to come together to have any chance at defeating any size of federal government that they at the time would begin to build. They already knew that. And they knew at some point it was going to get to the point where it was so big that it would need kind of put in its place. That's why the Second Amendment is so important. That's why they put that in there to begin with. They were smart enough to have the foresight to know 250 years in advance that it would come to this point. Yet here we are today trying to convince ourselves of everything but. Yes, the forefathers put in the Second Amendment in case of a tyrannical government, but you might as well be one of these people that say, I believe in the Second Amendment, I believe in gun rights, but there is no but. You believe in the Second Amendment or you don't. You know what it's there for or you don't. You think the government is tyrannical or you don't. There is no but. A tyrannical government must be stopped. It must be met with force. It must be dictated once it decides that it wants to be the dictator. Period. No but. We have to get out of this habit. And conservatives are the fucking worst. I'm one of them. But I'm here to tell you, I am beginning to know my own better and better every single day. I'm beginning to understand why we are in the predicament that we are in. It's because the DNC, the Democrats, the liberals, they are willing to do whatever it takes, just like the military that will work for the president, whether it be Biden or the next Democrat candidate that will win election, unless there is some type of a psyop where they let us believe that we somehow still have control before the next election cycle falls, and then the next DNC king rises to power, and that's when they fully decide to take all of our liberties. But conservatives and Republicans, they refuse to do any of this. They see what the DNC has done in the past, the cheating, the stealing, the spying, and instead of saying, we will be better than they are at their own game, we say, their game is wrong, and therefore we will not participate. Well, you don't win when you don't participate. You have to play the game. And we are very, very terrible at playing the game. To the point where even the people that are on our side are beginning to instill and only believe coping mechanisms. That is what this idea that you can detach away from the federal government and we can turn this thing around by becoming more self-reliant and independent from the system. That is the way. I'm here to tell you, once you begin to gain the independence to the point where you've detached from the federal government, where you're not paying tax dollars, and that's the point it would have to come to for it to actually make an impact like you think it will. Once it gets to that point where the federal government is no longer being fed its dollars hand over fist from the taxpayer, they will do something about it. The first 100 people to become so independent that they no longer pay tax dollars, they will hunt those people down. They will make examples out of those people. Anyone who is not secretly spreading information amongst the civilian population to create some type of a resistance or rebellion, anyone who dares to be outspoken or come on social media and have some type of an audience, those people will be stopped as well. There is no scenario in this where anything we are doing works. Period. Voting doesn't work. Homesteading, detaching doesn't work. Having the line in the sand be your personal safety and your loved one's safety be the only time you are willing to use any of these tactics that you've learned and paid for doesn't work. The people out there doing things that are working and will work are the ones who are training people on a team basis. When they're saying you will never survive in the wilderness by yourself while you're being hunted by the U.S. military, you will need a team. Even if it's a small team, you will need a team. Come down this road with me for a second. A lot of us are aware of the lone survivor story. A lot of us have seen the movie. You're talking about 4 or 5 of the baddest motherfuckers to have ever been born in the United States that have the financial backing, communication, and artillery handed to them limitless with any power from the United States government. 5 of these guys are in the mountains, lose communication for a brief period of time, being hunted by the Taliban. One of them survived. And that one person did not survive because he was stronger, more trained. He survived from sheer luck and because a small tribe in the Middle East decided to protect him from the Taliban. What can we take away from this story? That you, the everyday citizen that has begun to go down this journey of preparedness and tactical training, will not survive being hunted by the U.S. military alone. It is going to take communities to defeat them. It is going to take communities for you to survive the tyrannical federal government. That is what you can take away from the lone survivor story. A lot of these stories from the GWAT era, Global War on Terror, I want you to, and I know it might be hard for some patriots to even fathom the concept that we would be the Taliban and the United States government would be who they were over in the Middle East. But this is the concept that you guys keep using. You keep saying that the Taliban fended off the U.S. military for 20 plus years and finally got them to leave Afghanistan with just AKs and sand and turbines. So if you are going to use that as the example of why we can do it with just our M4s and AR-15s and some resilience, and our patriotism and our love for the Constitution, if this is the example that you guys want to believe in, then you have to put yourself in the shoes of those Taliban fighters and realize more of them died than we will ever know. The U.S. military will never release a head count of Middle Eastern um, heritage bodies from the DOJ. That will never happen. You will have some stories where they say they've hunted out Al Qaeda leaders and the Taliban, and they killed Osama bin Laden, uh, all these things. But the amount of civilian casualties that died in the Middle Eastern regions will never be released. Hell, Obama alone killed thousands, not war fighters, not Taliban, but just civilians over there that weren't even doing anything. Were sitting there minding their own business and then got fucking a drone strike fly over their house and they were murdered. And whether you hate Obama and think he's just the worst president and nothing more, nothing less, or you worship the ground this dumb motherfucker walks on, please believe that he is one of the worst war criminals we have ever produced in the United States of America. And this is the president that the DNC worships. They hate God, they hate religion, so they worship Obama. A lot of us know we aren't stupid. We know Biden isn't calling the shots. Where do you think those shots are coming from? Well, the first black president to have ever won the Oval Office, of course. So if he's willing to do those things, not in the pursuit of freedom and liberty, but for oil amongst 100 other corrupt things, what do you think that Obama and the DNC are prepared to do to the people that the DNC, the Biden administration, liberals, progressives, have been labeling conservatives for the last 2 years? You would like to believe that most Americans would be unwilling to kill other Americans. This is a lot of the hang-up that us as conservatives find ourselves in when we talk about having a civil war or fighting the federal government, because we know the federal government is actually just filled with civilians that have too much hunger for power, but they are indeed United States civilians, and we just can't fathom taking their life. Well, for the last 5 years, the DNC has done their best to not only take control of every institution in the United States, but to dehumanize us. Conservatives aren't Americans. We are terrorists. We are domestic terrorist, racist, Nazi bigots. That's what we are. And to them, our lives are worth just as much as the Nazi scum and World War II. Have you ever seen some of these movies? And I know a lot of them aren't very realistic, but some of these movies that show how the Civil War happened and what the mindset was from the people from the South and the North. I know that a lot of that is like Hollywood propaganda about, how the South was, all they wanted to do was keep their slaves. I know a lot of it is bullshit, but believe if you mentally get to the point where you can kill another United States citizen, you are going to have to dehumanize them. And some of these movies that portray the South and their hatred for the North, that is real. And that is where the Democrats are at. So not only are they willing to cheat in elections, not only are they willing to discard the Constitution, they're willing to add as many justices to the Supreme Court to get their way. They're willing to do corrupt and illegal things. They're willing to groom and molest our children. Not only are they willing to do all of this, but they are willing to dehumanize us to the point where they have no issue killing us. And conservatives just don't have the balls. Okay. You've been to 2 or 3 Rifle 1, Pistol 2 classes, whatever. You've done your fieldcraft survival training program. You go to the gym 3 times a week and take jujitsu, but are you willing to kill another American? That's the question you need to ask. And I'm not saying or promoting that we do that. I'm saying we do something before it gets to that point, because it is getting to that point, and we will be the ones that are unwilling to do it while they are willing to kill us. That is why the numbers game does not work out in our favor. The 100,000 shooters that the U.S. military has are willing to use their training and their arsenal to kill us. The 30 million civilians that are trained in tactics and procedures and preparedness and gunfighting, they are not willing to use that violence to fight other Americans. And this is why the line in the sand is at an individual level. Because conservatives will never be the people that say, I am willing to kill all Democrats. I am willing to kill all pedophiles and groomers. And we're going to do this on a case-by-case basis. If that minor attractive person can control himself and his urges and does nothing to hurt the victims, then we will spare him. But we can't, on a mass scale, execute these minor attractive people, right? This is the mindset. That you have to understand that the DNC, the Democrats, the liberals, that's not how their mind works. Their mind works like this. Conservatives are racist, and racists are Nazis, and Nazis must die. They're stupid, they're ignorant, but it's not that they're smarter than us or more capable. It's that they're more willing. They're more willing to show up and do what needs to be done. Period, point blank. And until conservatives can wrap our mind around that concept that we will have to do uncomfortable things to people that we very much probably don't want to hurt, but we will just have to come to the conclusion that in order to save our country, we will have to stop being so passive aggressive and just be aggressive. And this is even before the violence. This is just showing up. This is just saying, hey, fuck all Democrats. No more of this. We must be able to have political conversations. The DNC wants to exterminate us. Therefore, we must stop them. Period. No nuance. Period. Because that's what the DNC is doing to the RNC, the conservatives, the libertarians, all of the above. Your everyday American citizen that might be able to swing in and out of liberal progressive politics and into conservative Republican politics, they're not the ones that are going to be doing a whole lot of anything that's going to be saving this country. They're going to be making sure the wheels stay turning. Just like the women in the Civil War had to, make bullets, tend to the wounded, watch the children. These are your center aisle, refusing to take one side or another Americans. But the decision makers, the people that have no choice because they are wired that way, but to do what needs to be done to save the generation after. We'll be out there doing just that. And the conservatives are in the history books will go down as the losers because we are just unwilling to show up. It's not a question of if we can do what needs to be done or if we will. It's that we refuse to even show up. We would rather picture ourselves running scared and hiding in the woods, being hunted down one by one and having our family executed. Do you think when the South captured soldiers from the North running with their families, do you think they just executed the adult male and treated the women and children with kindness? So are you telling me you really think that the Democrats and the DNC, once they execute the majority of conservative middle-aged males, are going to be kind to our children, our daughters, our wives, our sons? Is that what you think? Do you think if it gets to the point where we're running in the woods and we surrender, that they're going to let the rest of our family live out the rest of their lives? Even if they do you think they're not going to be enslaved and tortured and raped and molested? A lot of the Democrats, progressive and liberals, that is literally what they are fighting for. They are fighting because they want the right to be able to groom your children. And you don't think they're going to do it to your children because you're a badass motherfucker hiding in the woods? That just sounds so stupid. And if we want to continue to claim that we are more educated, smarter, and more righteous than the left, then we damn sure better start acting like it. And I really do. And just try, because this is what a lot of the conservative podcast hosts and influencers say. You should be able to have a political conversation with people you don't agree with. You shouldn't want to kill other United States civilians. You are better than the Democrats and the liberals. We have to do what's right. None of that will save our republic. But try to watch some of these movies that in a way resemble some of these battles that went on in the GWAT. And just imagine, because we will be the less equipped, less capable of communication and tactics. Imagine that you're that side in the GWAT in these movies that you guys like to watch to get your dick hard so you can go to your stupid fucking preparedness class. Watch Lone Survivor. Watch what's some of the other movies? 13 Hours. Get your fucking boner and then go out and do your bill drills and just imagine yourself being the Middle Easterns that are fighting the US military. Do you actually believe you have a fucking chance, a 1 in a million chance to defeat the American federal government? Do you really? Are you that naive? There is no scenario where this plays out in our favor unless we are willing to not be stopped when we gather, that we are willing to gather and put away the nuances for people on our side, not the DNC, not the Democrats, not the liberals. The ones that won't fight us will not join us. Believe that. So just fuck them all off. Just get the fuck out of here. Now, the ones that we can have political conversations with, the ones that are willing to fight and die on an individual level to save our liberties and justice and God bless the USA and all that jazz, all those, we have to be willing to meet those people in person, not over social media, not anywhere that is not face to face with anything and everything we have that is useful in fighting wars. So yes, that means your AR-15s. Whether you want to say they're not M4s, they're not weapons of war, they're not military style weapons. Well, guess what? They were still made with the sole purpose of killing people. So all of those things we meet and we decide to take a stand. Not take shots, but take a stand and see if the federal government is willing to actually kill us. But what they will not have a choice is to continue without devastating repercussions with what they are doing. So this means to be able to continue for the DNC and the Biden administration to continue out their Green New Deal or whatever the fuck they decided to call it, to keep spending trillions of taxpayer dollars and grooming children and taking our gun rights and stomping on the Constitution. If they wish to continue doing those actions, they will be forced to do something. It might not be what's in our best interest. It might not be what we want to happen, but they will be forced to do something. If there is 1 to 300,000 Americans at least capable of war in some concept of it, show up in Washington, D.C., that tells the federal government, we're done playing this. You're not doing this. We do not want you in office, and we are not leaving until we resolve some of this. They will have to come to the table and be willing to negotiate. They will have to take the first shot and kill a lot, maybe even most of those people in the United States, or I'm sorry, that gathered in Washington, D.C., or they take the first shot and they get their ass kicked too. Now, none of these are ideal, but this is the first step of many that will actually change the path in what this country is going through. Because I promise you, even if it ends up with all 1 to 300,000 of those civilians dead, the rest of the United States, at least the people that are actual fucking human beings and not evil, demonic, satanic, demons, will be like, holy shit. I know some of those people that showed up in Washington, D.C. I seen on video, or I was present to be able to witness that these people were not violent. They were willing to negotiate. They were just fed up. They were trying to do what was right and save this country. And the Biden administration executed a good fucking portion of the American population. That is some evil fucking shit. This is some fascist dictator type fucking shit. So, even though I didn't realize how bad it is, I know now. So then that 300,000 civilians that were willing to stand up and actually face the federal government will turn into millions. People that are paying tax dollars will stop in such an abrupt, basis that the federal government will not be able to combat it. Because you will have mass demonstrations, protests, riots that will shut down our economy, and they will be forced to do things that they don't want to do as well. And it's going to be because what they decide to do there that day in front of those 300,000 civilians that were actually willing to gather, actually willing to put aside their petty differences and say, we have to make a stand so that our children do not. We have to make a stand because our voting system doesn't work anymore. We have to do this because our forefathers gave us the Second Amendment and the ability to know when a government became tyrannical and too big for its britches. We just had to be willing to do the right thing. Camping in the woods, running from the federal government is not the right thing. You might think it is, but it's not. To look at everything that the DNC is doing to conservatives right now and say, we're not going to do that because it's not the right thing. That is also not the right thing to do. To be able to save this country, we have to win. We have to change the way and the course, the trajectory of this country, whether it means breaking a few rules or not. We have to be willing to show up and do the things that the DNC is not willing to do. If they are willing to groom, torture, molest our children, we have to be willing to cut their heads off in the town square. If our politicians are willing to be corrupt, steal from us, abuse us, hunt us, we must be willing to burn Washington, D.C. to the fucking ground. Because as much as that sounds like it's a terrible thing, which don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it won't be horrific. It's not ideal, but I promise you, Washington, D.C. in flames is a lot better than our whole country in flames because we were too weak to do the right thing, to show up and fight the politicians that most of us are saying are corrupt, doing the wrong thing, stealing from us, grooming our kids. I mean, like I said, I think most of us are willing to agree that we have to have a line in the sand. But when it really comes down to it, you have to actually be willing to take a stand once that line is crossed. And there's not a lot of people out there that are willing to do that. I can say, if your dog shits in my yard, that's my line in the sand. I will kick your ass. But if your dog continues to shit in my yard and I don't do a fucking thing about it, well, I guess that wasn't my line in the fucking sand, was it? How many conservatives, Second Amendment advocates, gun, toting Americans are out there that will tell you when they come for our guns, that's the line in the sand. That is when we will not bury our guns, but we will dig them up because it is time to fight. How many of those people do you know? Myself included. Well, let me let you in on a little secret. This December, the ATF, even though they said we are going to take comments from the public dealing with the pistol brace on AR-15 fiasco, and in the past, if we got so many comments, we would not carry out these tyrannical rules and oversight that we don't even have the power to do anyway. That's what they said. Well, we had 250,000 comments. There's been over 10 million pistol braces sold in the United States. And now that they are finally where they want to be, where they have control of the White House, they have control of the ATF, they have control of the House and the Senate. Now they are saying, we don't give a damn how many comments we got. We don't give a damn how many pistol braces are out there. We don't give a shit. That the concept of the pistol brace is that you're being a law-abiding citizen by having a pistol brace instead of a stock. A lot of people don't get that. If you have a pistol brace on your AR-15 right now, it's because you are being a law-abiding civilian. The criminals, they're not putting pistol braces on their AR-15. They're SBRs. They're doing crime. They're committing robberies and murder. They do not give a fuck if they have a pistol brace or a stock. So 99.9% of the people that own pistol braces are law-abiding, patriotic Americans. And the ATF is saying, and this was leaked. They didn't offer up this information, but it was leaked. It was, the request from documents from 2A advocate lawyers and 2A support fighting groups, whatever you want to call them, that we received information that the ATF is actually, along with the Biden administration, so this is a coerced plan of attack on law-abiding citizens, that their only crime was they bought the thing that the ATF told them they had to have in the first place to not break the law. And it comes out that there's going to be an amnesty, that they are going to allow you to register. Mind you, that a registry is actually illegal, that the federal government is not allowed to keep a registry of gun owners in America, but they're going to have an amnesty so you can be put on a registry. And if you do not put your pistol brace on this registry, you will become a criminal. This has the ability to impact 10 million plus law-abiding gun owners in this country. And do you know what people are doing right now? They're arguing. They're not arguing over with it whether it's right or not, whether the ATF has the actual power to do this. They're arguing amongst themselves, saying, "Hey, you're being a bitch for buying a pistol brace in the first place." They're giving you a $200 exempt free tax stamp. Put it on the NFA, register your fucking bullshit SBR like the rest of us, because we're kings, right? We're fucking badass people because we bought the tax stamp to have the SBR, because somehow this is me showing you that I am more for freedom and liberty than you putting a pistol brace on there. So we're fighting amongst each other on whether or not it is more pro-freedom to have the pistol brace and not be on a registry, or put on a stock and get put on a registry, instead of these 10 million plus law-abiding citizens coming together and saying, fuck that. Let's go to ATF headquarters and say, you will not do this. You tried to hide it. We did what's right. We're following laws. Now, since you're willing to break laws and become tyrannical, we are willing to shut you down. And by shut you down, I mean fucking kill you. That is what has to be done for this shit to stop. Because if you don't do that, what is going to happen is they're going to keep doing it. Okay, you don't have a fucking pistol brace. You don't care. Guess what? They'll come for the fucking revolvers. They will come for the pistols. Pistols commit 99% of murders in the United States. And you think they're going to stop at the M4s, AR-15s, when they don't even make up 1% of the crimes in the United States? You really think that's where the tyrannical government's going to stop? You really think the ATF, after they have a new frame and receiver process and definition to the point where they can take anything and everything they want away from you, that they're going to stop? Do you think if they get the pistol braces and force 10 million plus people to be put on a registry, you think they're going to stop? What exactly do you think they're going to use that registry for? You think it's to make sure that those guys follow the law? No, because they were already following the law when they bought the fucking pistol brace. If they were worried about people following the law, they would be fighting criminals, child molesters, and half the fucking DNC. They're not worried about criminals. They're worried about taking guns away from you. They are being tyrannical. Now it's time for you to fucking man up and be at least a little willing to do 1% of what they're willing to do to disarm and kill us. It is literally that simple. You think Trump's going to save us? They're not even going to let Trump run for president. Okay, by some miracle, he wins the election. You think they're going to let him do what needs to be done to save this country? Most of the things that they have done and put in place to be where they are right now, they did with Trump in office. Let's not forget that the whole reason we are in the position in the economy is because COVID. Guess where all those mandates and restrictions started? Under Trump. Trump sitting in the White House will not save you. And that's only going to buy you a little bit of time, a little bit of wiggle room. Eventually, there will be another Democrat in office. And every time they have stepped foot in the White House, they have taken more of our constitutional rights. They have taken more power and control and put us in a worse position in our economy, as far as our children's education, as far as our debt, as far as the housing market, everything. They are terrible. Democrats are bad for Americans. So, how long are we going to wait? How long are we going to be brainwashed that this can actually be fixed at a voting booth before we do something that has some type of consequence that will make some change? Most things that make shit happen, make things better, come with consequences. And going to a voting booth and having a way to make your voice heard without letting other people know who you voted for has no consequence at all. And that should tell you right then and there that this will change nothing. And if you think that in 2024, whether it's Trump, DeSantis, doesn't matter, that the DNC doesn't have a good fucking chance of winning, you're retarded. But you should also know the reason they have that good of a chance to win is because they're willing to do whatever the fuck it takes, not because they have that much support and that many people actually want a Democrat in office. And if you don't believe me, go try to find somebody that voted for Biden. The only reason you will know that they voted for Biden is if you say, "Did you vote for Trump?" And they go, "No." But they will not tell you that they voted for Biden because they know how terrible Biden was. They just really have something mentally wrong with them that they would rather vote for the downfall of our country than vote for Trump. Two of the most popular things in the United States, and this should tell you exactly how true the DNC manipulating the 2020 election really is. The two most popular things in the United States that everyone will recognize, and a good portion, if not up to 50% or more, people actually own, is the Make America Great hat, which is for Trump, usually screaming, "Hey, I am a conservative. I voted for Trump. I did not vote for the DNC. I do not agree with them." Now, the second thing you would think is, well, if that many people voted for Biden and wanted the DNC to be in the Oval Office, then clearly there's a Make America Democrat hat, right? That's the second most popular thing. No, actually, the second most popular thing and the most recognizable thing in the United States, rather or other than a Make America Great hat that is for Trump, is a Let's Go Brandon t-shirt, a Fuck Joe Biden t-shirt. That's how bad the DNC is for this country. And even though that many people agree, even though it is that obvious, conservatives aren't willing to do a goddamn thing to change it. Let that sink in. Watch a movie. Swap places with the Middle Easterners and see if you actually think we'd be willing to pull off what put whatever terrorist organization you want in there. Replace it with American conservatives because we are the new terrorist. That's what they've been doing for the last 2 years is redefining that definition, redefining domestic terrorist and what makes up a domestic terrorist. So we will eventually there will be movies of conservatives fighting the federal United States government and getting our ass kicked just as bad until maybe one day we fend off the tyrannical United States gay LGBTQ federal government. But until then, stay safe, stay prepared for what it's fucking worth. Love you guys. God bless America first. Peace, y'all.